Hey, welcome back to the Positive Side Podcast. Obviously, this is the host, Jeremy Todd. Hey, it's International Podcast Day, and I am jacked up like always. I'm fired up today. It's been a few days that I've done a podcast, and we're gonna bring my buddy on here in just a minute. But I just want to talk, and we're gonna bring him in halfway through this conversation because it's something that I struggle with a lot of times. I did a podcast. I think the last one I did was probably last Wednesday, I would guess. And then I just got in a little bit of a funk. It was I've got some ideas that kind of came up, and I just really had a hard time organizing and putting them all together. And sometimes the best thing to do, for no pun intended, when I bring on Andrew Gritzmaker here in just a second, is just get back on the bike. You know what I mean? So first of all, I got Andrew Gritzmaker. I mean, this dude. For all the people that don't know him, there's a lot of people around the world. Obviously, you don't know Andrew Gritzmaker, but he's from the neighborhood. I mean, he's a no-weight guy, man. I'm proud to have him on the show. I'm proud of what he's done. He's the CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Fort Wayne. And we talked a while ago. We had lunch. Remember that a few months ago, and we talked about some of the things that you were going through and some of the the accomplishments that you had, some of the struggles that you had. But really, I guess tie it all back into what I was talking about earlier. Well, Andrew, first of all, welcome to the show. Second of all, is what do you do? Because we just kind of talked about this. You said you had a lot of things going on at work, and you had a lot of. When you're building houses and you're speaking and you're bringing all these sponsors in, what do you do when you feel overwhelmed?
Oh gosh, I feel like a lot of the anxiety associated with having a lot to do is surrounded by kind of the anticipation of the launch rather than actually getting going, right? So we kind of get paralyzed, and then the less we do or the less active we are or decisive in taking that next step, it just kind of compounds, right? Because we know that there's a lot of work to be done and it's not going anywhere. And we know we just have to get started, but that's the hardest thing. And then this domino effect takes place. So what I try to do, if I've got a lot on my plate, I'm going after the easy stuff first, which sounds a little bit counterintuitive because it's like, hey, listen, you're busy, tackle the most important task at hand. And I would say if you've got some momentum going, that is the strategy you should utilize to be most productive each and every day. But if you're kind of stuck in the mud and having that failure to launch, start doing some small things, and that'll snowball into getting ready to tackle on or take on those larger, more complex tasks that may be the most important thing you actually got to get done.
Are you a checklist guy?
I try to be. I feel like anytime you write something down, it becomes more concrete. And it's great to see those things kind of fall off the list as you get through them. And I think that adds to just the visualization of getting things accomplished and feeling good about momentum. And that momentum is a powerful thing. It's that inertia will take you a lot farther than you think. And it's just getting started and propelling yourself, getting that first step out of the way. So I love seeing it. I love seeing things fall off the list and capitalize on that momentum.
Well, like I said earlier, and I think I told you this 1,000 times. I'm just so proud of you and what you've been through and where you've come from. And we grew up in the same neighborhood and went to the same grade school. And man, we got a lot of friends in common, and it's just great, man. When you were a kid, you look back and it just, I don't know. It's just, you don't realize that you don't grow up in super wealthy income area. But, for us, man, we had everything we wanted. We had friends, we had great times. We had all that we wanted. And now you look back and like, man, there were some tough times there for sure. And I'm just curious, like, looking back in your childhood, what are some of the things that stood out for you that really have made you for who you are right now?
Oh man, I think first and foremost, and I think you would say the same thing, is just the example my parents set for us all. They're both just blue-collared, hardworking individuals, not overly educated individual, and not in a negative way. It's just that, my dad went to trade school. My mom had no college. But early on, it was all about working hard, doing the right thing, making sure you're taking care of things in the classroom. There were high expectations. And, times were tight, pretty lean most of the time, but we always had an abundance of everything we need, an abundance of love, an abundance of encouragement, and an abundance of food, believe it or not. Now, it may have been macaroni and cheese with chopped up hot dogs that make it a special Friday night, but we always had enough. So we were well fed, well cared for, and the expectation was set pretty high early on that regardless of our circumstances, our parents expected us to excel and achieve.
Yeah,
So I think that's important.
yeah, it's just super important, and I think you hit the nail right on the head because looking back with my parents, neither one of them went to college. My dad never went. My mom went when she was a single parent raising 5 kids. So you see, at that point she decided I'm gonna go back to college then, which was cool. But the biggest thing, like you said, which is hard work, and I think at the end of the day, man, and I don't think you can overstate this in any job or any career. Hard work pays off, and as long as you continue to work hard over time, things are going to work out. And it kind of walks me into this next thing about talking about hard work. And I want you to talk about this bike race that you had, because I think it's super awesome, super incredible, super crazy. I know you had some crazy stories. Talk a little bit about the race. I already forget the name. I know, yeah, I asked you like 30 seconds ago and I already forget the name, but talk a little bit about the bike race. And really, I want to we'll talk about the bike race first, and I got a follow-up question after that.
Yeah, for sure. The race I did was actually, there's a documentary done on it called Inspired to Ride. And I think the documentary is from 2015. But the bike race itself is called the Trans-American Bike Ride. And it's it may be still the longest unsupported bike race in the world. So you start in Astoria, Oregon, you go through 10 states, and you finish in Yorktown, Virginia. And it's every man or woman for themselves. So there's nobody, when you get to Yorktown, there's nobody there celebrating with you. You just end at this monument. There's no T-shirts. You don't even have a Gatorade waiting on you. There is no prize money for winning this race. So, last year, I think the winner took it in like 17 days or something like that and set a new course record. He gets the same thing everybody else gets. Absolutely nothing. And essentially, unsupported means that you got to take care of yourself. When you leave Astoria, Oregon, and when I did this in June of 2018, there were about 115 cyclists that started. And everyone takes off. You got a GPS unit on your bike. You got a route map that's downloaded to your onboard computer. And this GPS unit will ping every so often to make sure you're following the course, that you aren't throwing your bike in the back of a pickup truck and going 60 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And then you're off and running, man. So your bike breaks down, you fix it. You get critically injured, hopefully there's a good Samaritan. You run out of food or water, you got to find it. Look for the closest creek, and that's what makes it so rewarding, so challenging, and frankly, so crazy. Not many people would embark on something like that.
No. So, okay. So you're riding this bike, but how many miles was it? Like 4,000 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. 4,200.
Okay. 4,200 miles. Tell me about the darkest times. I mean, were there times when you wanted to give up? Were there times that you maybe wrecked the bike? Were there times you couldn't sleep? Like 4,200 miles. And it's interesting with 4,200 miles. What the first thing that comes to my mind is the mental struggle, the mental like overcoming the obstacles, and like where you're by yourself and like alone in your own head. The things that would come up would just be, I think it's physically, and I'm sure it's physically exhausting, and I'm sure it's extremely tough, but man, some of the mental things have to be just as tough, if not tougher than the physical. So talk a little about some of the tough things that happened through this bike ride.
Yeah, I would even back up through the training process. So I had done a century ride or two before. I'd done an Ironman, and part of that training process, you do a 100-miler, also known as a century. But when I decided to do this trip, it was to raise money for the current not-for-profit that I was at, the Matt Anthony's Children's Hope House. And I was actually on my trainer in my living room and watching Netflix, and that's where I saw Inspired to Ride. So I got to see all these amazing athletes race across the country. And Mike Hall was one of the best ultra cyclists in the world. He won it that year, and he died, I think, a year later doing another ultra race in Australia. And I believe I have that right. But anyway, he was a captivating character, and just really, I felt compelled. I was like, I'd always had in the back of my mind, I wanted to do a cross-country bike race. Well, not even a bike race, back up, a bike ride. And I always thought it was going to be leisurely. I would take, 3 months, like most people do when they do a coast-to-coast ride in the U.S., and see lots of sights and eat lots of good food and meet lots of interesting people. And it would just be like,
sounds like a nice little vacation, doesn't it?
And then I see Inspired to Ride, and I'm like, oh man, having been a collegiate athlete and done marathons, Bostons, ultras, Ironmans, then something snapped in me, and I was like, man, this would be really, really beautiful, super, super difficult, exceptionally painful, and probably the most rewarding thing I could ever do if I accomplish it. And then I started thinking, how can I tie this into what I do day in and day out? And the Matt Anthony's Children's Hope House is a not-for-profit, much like a Ronald McDonald's House charity. So moms and dads can stay right on campus at the hospital here at Lutheran Hospital. And then we just feed mom and dad, make sure they have a clean, comfortable bedroom, and keep them close to their child. And I started thinking about the parallels of what those families face and what I would face. I'm going to be really far away from home. I'm going to be tired, hungry, scared, lonely. I'm going to have to depend on the love and kindness of perfect strangers. I'm going to have to face some really dark times and figure out how to get out of bed every morning, put one leg back over that bike, or like that family, get out of bed and make that short trip over the hospital, see their premature child or the child receiving cancer treatments, and have to put on that brave face, and doing it in a very public manner because I wanted to raise money as well. So I was, already thinking about this on the bike, how I tie this together, the parallels, how I could raise some money. And then I made the commitment. So I signed up for the race, and that's the easy part. You do like this quick questionnaire and it's $250. And I still haven't told anybody yet, Jeremy, because I'm just like, if I don't do it, whatever, I'm not 250, who cares?
Yeah, right.
But then I start training, and that's where the monotony came in. Like one day during my training cycle, and there's no way you can train for this, period. Without going and doing it, you will not be prepared. So I did 3 100-mile bike rides in my living room in consecutive days, 72 hours, 300 miles in one spot in my living room, just to get a feel for the mental aspects that would come into play. Now, let me tell you what, when you go by the Tetons on a bike, it's gorgeous.
Oh, sure.
When you cross over the Rockies, it's incredible. Hoosier Pass in Colorado, put it on a postcard.
Yeah.
But 99% of that trip is nothing but wide open spaces. Nothing. Some days you may go 2-3 days without seeing anything to write home about. And you're on that bike for 10, 12, sometimes 15 hours. One day I was on the bike for 237 miles continuously, right? So you hit on something, the mental aspects in those dark times. But those dark times started right here in my living room. They started on day 3, my third consecutive 100-miler in 72 hours, staring at a wall. And when you get out there and you hit those barriers from a mental aspect, you may not appropriately ever be prepared, but you can draw on similar situations and experiences and say, yeah, I've been there. Maybe it was only for 5 hours, but if I can stare at a wall for 5 hours on day 3, then this is day 14. I can stare at open road crossing Kansas and do it, for 15 hours into a headwind with no one coming to rescue me, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. That's, obviously I can imagine. The first thing I thought about when you said you did 100 miles in your living room for 3 straight days, okay, that's 100 miles. You do 4,200 of those. So it's like 42 straight days of that, dude. That's a lot of bike riding. I mean, again, I don't even know, number one, the preparation for that has got to be insane. The water, the food, and all that stuff. And then I think just the crossing over the finish line, the pressure, the mental pressure for yourself is like, I got to finish because you can't let anybody down, so you add that additional pressure on yourself. You cross the line, you get to the finish. What goes through your head?
Nothing, nothing at that moment. I was just kind of in awe of the feat itself and frankly surprised that I made it. I mean, the first 14 days, you're getting acclimated. So you start off, you're excited. Going down the coast of Oregon, I'm not at the time, wasn't an exceptionally emotional guy. But then I cried for 32 straight days across the country, and now it's really easy to get me to tear up. But I'm coming out of the starting chute and real quickly hit the coast of Oregon, and I couldn't breathe. Like my chest tightened up and my eyes welled up, and it was just this dream come true, and it was exactly how I imagined it would look. And you're surrounded by all the excitement from all these other cyclists from all over the globe. And I'm like, man, it's happening. So that boost stays with you for the first couple of days. I did 187 miles that first day, and I don't think I made one pedal stroke. I was floating the whole time. The next day you wake up, you're a little bit tired, but it's still there, man. So you're ready to cut diagonally up across Oregon, get into the high desert, head towards Idaho. Still there, man. Day 3, still there. Day 4, felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. I was riding with a couple other cyclists, one specifically from Hong Kong. He was a German guy named Tim. And I got dropped, and I was solo. And I was pretty much solo from there on out until I got to like the Virginia line, where I saw some other cyclists. And that's really where it started. The exhaustion was number one, right? And when you're tired, everything's so much more difficult. Every task takes so much longer, and I'm taking care of myself. So I'm planning where I'm going to eat, what I'm going to eat, how long it is before the next stop, where I'm going to sleep, if my bike breaks down, when I'm going to get it fixed,
Sure.
when I'm going to pump up my song. All these tasks, which seem very rudimentary and I should be able to phone them in, become exponentially more difficult. Now I'm posting on social media. I got all this fanfare back in Fort Wayne. Everyone's rah trying to help raise this $30,000, right? So there is no ambiguity anymore. And I asked for it, right? But
Sure.
like you alluded to, it's center stage. So you got to live up to it. But I was just really raw in the moment. Hey, I'm tired, right? And after that exhaustion sets in for a while, you get a little bit sloppy in your form, and then your muscles start going, right? You're climbing. Sure. Over the first several days, I had a couple 10,000 foot climbs cumulatively. And so then my knees start going. Most excruciating pain I've ever felt in my entire life. I get to West Yellowstone, and I have to stand up. I can't sit down anymore on my seat. So I bike for a couple hours standing up, because that's the only way my knees remotely feel a little bit better. But it feels like I got ice picks in both knees, and I'm heading into West Yellowstone, just outside of Yellowstone proper. And you have all these families coming in RVs. Kids are excited. They're on vacation. Yeah. June, everyone's excited. And you see this full-grown man standing up on a bike, crying hysterically, yelling F-bombs.
All
right.
That's great.
And I thought that was rock bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
That was just like the first level of hell. There was like 7 more to descend to. And man, I called my wife that night, and I was in a hotel room, and I just told her, I said, I'm done. I'm coming home, and we're relocating, because I can't let all these people down. And so she funny. Says,
I know that feeling. That's great. I love it. I laugh because I haven't been through that situation, but I've moved several times, and then moving back, and then not facing your ultimate fears of, sure, the bike it sucks, but facing your peers and family and letting people down. I guess that's the biggest thing. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're absolutely right. But in that mix is like yourself. For the first time in my life, I was up against something that it had defeated me, like effectively that night. If someone had a plane ticket for me in West Yellowstone, I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm not thinking twice about it. I'm taking that exit. And I remember, I talked to my wife, and I'm kind of hysterical at this point. I'm just like, I'm done. I bit off more than I can chew. Like, I'm embarrassed. I'm going to have to drop out. Like, I'm barely into this thing. I'm giving up. I'm tapping out. And she was like, have you eaten dinner? I'm like, yeah. She's like, go eat more. Go to dinner again. And then she's like, then get some rest. And tomorrow morning, if you still feel like dropping out, I support you 100%. So I go eat a second meal. I get some Gatorades. I sit in the room. I ice my knees. I get up the next day. I only make it 50 miles. I get to West Yellowstone. And just so happens my neighbor, Nick, who literally lives right next to me here in Fort Wayne, was out in Yellowstone for the summer working. And so I go see him, and they put me up in their room in West Yellowstone, and I just sleep. I go to sleep, and I wake up the next day, and I am 100% certain that is the day I'm dropping out. So I called one of my buddies, John Burkett, who did some videography for this and helped me with some of the social media and aspects of it. And I called John. I'm like, I'm done, dude. I'm done. I'm out. And he's like, all right, well, he's like, you are in Grant Village. And he said, if you can just make it to Coulter Bay, he said, the Tetons are there. And he was like, you don't want to leave Yellowstone without seeing the Tetons. And John knew me, well enough to know that if I got on that bike to get to the Tetons, I was going to keep going. I got on the bike. I went and saw the Tetons. 100 and some miles later, I wind up in Dubuis, and then the rest is history. And then I just keep rolling. A couple days later, there's another story behind that that's inconsequential. I get my knees taken care of. I get on the boat, I get back on the bike, and then I'm a demon, man. I cut across Kansas and then keep rolling, and the rest is history. So when you ask me, I get to that monument and I sit down, I would say nothing was going through my head at that moment, specifically, but I definitely just sat in awe of how the world and God had conspired to make this thing happen. 2 cyclists were hit and killed days apart in Kansas. The year before, another cyclist, Eric Fishman, hit and killed Kansas. So even sitting there, like, I could have done everything right and still not made it. Outside of my control, right? So I don't know, man. Reflecting on it, Monday morning quarterbacking it, I can tell you all these philosophical things, but in that moment, I just took it in. I was just happy to be safe.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, dude, it's just so funny, man, with you. You bring this race up, dude, and you just light up, and I love it. And I mean, it's just obviously that's your passion. That's what you love to do. But I want to take 2 things out of those things that you said. And this is the advice that I try and tell people all the time. And I'm glad you mentioned this. First thing was what your wife said. She just said, she didn't say anything groundbreaking. It was just, you know what, take a break, go eat, sit down, relax. Because sometimes when we're in that emotional state, we don't make sense to ourselves. And this happens in my job, your job, and you can put that advice in your life right today, is that when things are going crazy, things sound horrible, things sound tough, and you're not going to make it through it. Sometimes it's just good to just take a step back and relax and just say, you know what, I'm going to do something different, and allow your mind to catch up with your emotions, because you get so caught up in that stuff. And sometimes it seems like there's no end, but a lot of that's just all emotional. So your wife gave you the best advice ever at that point. And then your buddy, I mean, that's perfect advice too. Just giving you a little bit of gold, not telling you just get to the end. Don't focus on the end. Focus on, I always tell people that I don't want to take people from A to Z. I want to take people A to B. Yeah. So you're just trying to get to the next 100 miles, and then we'll see what happens then. But damn well, you get to the next 100 miles, dude. Okay, now we're going. Now we get the next 100. And it just keeps going. But when you tackle these goals in your life, and that's a big goal. 4,200 miles is a gigantic goal. It sounds gigantic, but when you start breaking it down to smaller goals every single day, all of a sudden this gigantic goal seems actually, sure, ups and downs, but it's attainable. And that's those are the 2 big things I took out of that. And hell, we can talk about this race all day long, and I love it. But I want to talk to you about, with that passion and that fire and that drive and that accomplishment. We talked about this a little bit when we were at lunch. I don't know if you remember it or not, but we talked about, what's next. How do you live up to the next thing? How do you get your mind right? Because, I see it all the time. Hey, I get this next promotion, or I get this, or I got a new baby, I got married, and there's always this big thing, but now what's next? How do you maintain that thought process of what's next? And second part of that question is, what is next for Andrew Gritzmaker?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was actually just golfing with a friend, just over a week ago, and that came up. It was specific to, what's next professionally, but I struggle with that question a lot right now. And I'll tell you why. It's like, I had a very clear path throughout my life. It was, and I could even go all the way back to, the first thing that I really, really wanted, a drum set. And I formulated how I was going to pay for that drum set myself. Right. And then that first vehicle, right. And then that first job, and then how I was going to pay for college. I was always scheming to get, and scheming sounds like a bad word, but it's not. It's just, you're thinking through all the different avenues that you can explore to accomplish where you want to be and how you can get there. And after college, grad school, right? And simultaneously, first job, second job, where I'm going next. And so it was always this buildup. Running wise, it was, 5Ks, fast 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, fast half marathons, Boston Marathon, get to Boston. After Boston, what's next? Let's go 50, right. Let's go 100. There was always that next. And it ultimately led up to, from an athletic standpoint, Trans Am. And after I did that, I got to be honest with you, it was a huge letdown, because unless you're a professional athlete doing that as your full-time job, which would probably be absolutely miserable.
It'll kill you.
You're not topping that. What are you doing? You're just doing more of the same thing. So there's like this letdown in this law about just being okay with sometimes you reach the end of the road with something. So athletically, I don't know what that is. Or sometimes you reach a point in life where the next step isn't readily apparent, and that's okay. And I will tell you, like right now, like I'm at peace knowing that I don't have a next step professionally. And I'll tell you why. Because I think the best thing that's going to happen to me is going to be something that I could never even fathom on my own for
Yeah.
where I'm at. I mean, ultimately ending up at Habitat for Humanity. How does a guy go from a hospital administration undergraduate and graduate degree, wind up running a small not-for-profit that takes care of parents with sick kids,
Yeah.
then becomes the CEO for a construction and banking company with no expertise in either of those fields, right?
Well, what is it? What do you, I mean, what is it then?
Right now, I think that the greatest thing I wrestle with right now in my life, and it probably will be, and it's probably always been there, an underlying thing, is just being content. And I was having a conversation. Everything in business is about production and productivity. Get those margins up, get more dollars in the door, put more units out. And it's this constant, relentless thing. You hit a goal, and now 4,200 miles isn't enough. Now you got to go 43. Now you got to go 44. And think about what that does to an individual that's constantly setting goals, breaking through goals, and knowing that that goal is a moving target or it won't be enough next year.
Yeah.
It can be very, very exhausting. So I think right now it's like moving into this phase of my life. And I just shared, I'm 35, I'm getting older. I feel like I'm getting older in a lot of ways. I know there's still a lot left. And some listeners may be saying 35 isn't old. And
Yeah.
some
Right.
of
Yeah.
they say that guy's ancient. So you never really know. But I'm really struggling with just being content, right? And how do I chop wood every single day without the next goal? Because there's a lot of things that are within my power each and every day that I need to hone in on, that I need to focus on, that I need to do. And guess what? They're not sexy, they're not exciting, and there really is no ultimate end to getting me someplace else, or maybe even not getting the business to someplace else, but getting closer to a point of sustainability, a healthy spot where people can be calm in complacency, that can take solace in knowing that what you did this year will be enough next year. Focus your attention in the right way and find fulfillment.
I think that's the right attitude. And, it's so important to celebrate the wins, because, and again, your win is a 4,200-mile bike race. Someone else's win may be getting over cancer or getting that job. And it's the society that we live in. I think it has a lot to do with it, where we're comparing ourselves to this next person or this next opportunity instead of actually enjoying our actual space, like what we accomplished in our own lives. I think that makes you a better person. I think that makes you more calm and allows you to really enjoy the small things in life, man, because man, what scares the hell out of me all the time when I talk about, hey, I try and get to the next level. What's next for me? What's next for the podcast? What's next for my career? Where else am I going to live around the country? What else do I want to do? It just takes away time from being present with my children, time away from me being even happy with myself, man, because damn, dude, you, me, anyone that's come out of any struggle, those are wins. And we need to actually enjoy the wins, to enjoy this life. Because like you said, hey, there was a couple people in that bike race that got hit by cars and died, man. I mean, shit, you never know when your day is over. Man, it's important to achieve and keep pushing. I get it, all that, but there's that fine line, man. It's difficult. I struggle with it a lot. But I've worked really, really hard over the last probably 3 years, and I'm 42. So hell, it's been, man, I look back and I'm 39 years of just trying to keep up with the Joneses and keep pushing. In 3 years, man, that's nothing. I mean, but again, I don't look back at it as like, hey, I ruined my 39 years of life. It took me that time to get to the point where I actually understand how important life truly is and how to actually appreciate the moments, not get upset, not freak out, enjoy the tough, like I say enjoy the tough times, but appreciate the tough times. There's a lot going on, man. And life isn't, if these crazy times now have taught us anything, it's life is more important now than ever. And I appreciate it more now than I've ever had in my entire life. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because of those conversations we have. And I appreciate your vulnerability, and I appreciate you be honest, because I think that to me is new school thinking. It's being vulnerable allows you, and being authentic allows you to move to the next level. Not putting on a front about you're some badass and you're going to achieve this and you're crushing this shit. It's being, these are my weaknesses. This is what I need help with. And man, that is magnetic. That allows people to come to see you. And that's why you are where you are. So I asked you that question, like, how do you think it happened that, I mean, you were like, well, I was doing this and doing that. And now all of a sudden I'm running the company with construction and raising money. It happened because you allowed it to happen. You're authentic and this is what I'm not good at. This is what tell that story. And this leads me into it. Like you told me the story about how there was like 200 applicants for the job that you got. And you sent in the one, like, tell me that, because I think based on that ramble I just went on talking about that, I think that ties in a lot about what we're talking about here. So tell that story real quick.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a national search for the CEO position here for the affiliate in Greater Fort Wayne. And there was, 200 would be even more impressive, but I think there's like 60 plus applicants
whatever. That's a lot.
Who knows, maybe some of them weren't qualified. Maybe some of them were.
But look at you already self-deprecating yourself over, they may not, there might've been only 3 or 4, whatever. There's a lot of people there.
It could have been good. The point is, it's just like ultimately, I'm sure there are more capable, better qualified individuals. And at that time of my life, it was after the bike ride. And I was kind of just talking with one of my board of directors, a member of my board of directors, and said, hey, I just kind of feel like it's my time. I feel like, everything's in good shape and this organization's at a spot that it needs a new leader, different leader. And I think, I don't know what the next step is, but I'm thinking I'm going to start looking for whatever it is. And she said, well, actually, I know this position that's open. You should apply for it. And during that time, Andrew Hoffman, another just awesome human being, local executive director for a not-for-profit, turned me on to this podcast called On Being with Kristen Tippett, I think. And Father Greg Boyle was on there, and he's a Jesuit priest from South Central LA, does all this stuff with the homeboys. And like, he's just a very charismatic and just amazing human being. And he was talking about this concept of getting proximate with people. And like, the closer we get to people, right. And really just like, even from spatially, the closer we get to somebody, the more we understand that we're the same person. We're more alike than the differences that we'd like to tell ourselves, just make us two distinct individuals. And I was really thinking about that. Like, how do I get proximate to those in our community that really just need the most help? And how do I best understand what those needs are and try to meet them? So I wrote this cover letter based on, Father Greg Boyle. And I sent it back to my board member. I said, hey, take a look at this. What do you think? And she sent it back and she's like, I think it's awesome. And I sent this cover letter in, and that I guarantee that was the first hook. And I remember sitting in my office that day, banging out this cover letter and just put my heart into it. And I almost felt emotional writing it. I'm like, geez, man, this is a job that you're not qualified for and you're never going to get. Like, why are you sitting here like getting misty-eyed over this podcast, synopsis on a cover letter? And I got a call back, and it was a lengthy process. It was about 4 to 5 months of interviews, and I got the job. And before I knew it, I was taking over a construction company, and it didn't have any clue on what I was going to do.
Well, the reason you got it was because you were authentic, and you weren't trying to be anybody but who you are. And I think that's another great lesson to learn from everybody out there trying to be like somebody else. Be goofy, be weird, embrace your uniqueness. Your uniqueness is what makes you great. And when you try and fall in line with every freaking Joe, Bill, and Tom, you take away that uniqueness. And that's what we all need to understand. No matter what we're doing in our life, what we're teaching our kids, this may not be a traditional way to teach our kids, just do it. Whatever your heart tells you to do, you need to trust that, because it's what makes you unique. And that's truly your greatness. So I talk about it all the time on the show is embracing your greatness. You have greatness within. I say it on every show because it's a fact, man. When you put your authentic self out there and not give a shit, because you were like, I guarantee you that was the only cover letter that was even close to like yours, but it was authentic. It was real. It was truthful. It was emotional. That's what got you the job, bro. You were who you were. And when you go through a list of resumes and cover letters that are all the same bullshit, this is what I did. This is where I was. This is who I am. I'm a parent. I'm blah, 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 blah. seen it 1,000 times. Put some motion in it. And that goes to everything that you do in your life, whether you're a janitor, whether you're a construction worker, whether you're whatever. Whatever. I always pick on janitors in this show for some reason, but whatever. Whoever you are, be your authentic self. And I think that's super, super important. Once again, we're talking to Andrew Gritzmaker, a big 08 guy from the neighborhood. I love him, mad love. Andrew, I'm sure you listen to the podcast, but I like to go through these questions from John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, and we're going to hit them with you right now. You ready?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. Question number 1. Andrew, what's the greatest lesson you've ever learned?
Compassion is key in everything we do. And so bring that compassion. I try to show up every day with my employees, understand that they're human beings doing the best they can. Along with that comes a whole heck of a lot of grace. But I think ultimately the compassion starts with ourselves, giving ourselves a little bit of compassion, not being so tough on ourselves. And when you do that and you give yourself some space, it's easier to give other people space as well.
Man, that's so important, dude. And it's just so funny you're saying this stuff, because that's what we talk about all the time on the show is compassion. People have bad days. Don't get upset with them. People may get upset with you. What happened at their home? What are they going through in their personal life? Don't take it personal. Compassion is so important. And it's a word that gets glossed over a lot, but I think I just think it's more important now than ever, because you never know, man. Hey, someone might have COVID. Maybe someone's getting bullied. Someone's sick. You just don't know what's going on in people's lives nowadays. It's funny. Like I used to worry about it during the holidays, be extremely compassionate with people during holidays, because they're under stress, trying to buy gifts and trying to make everybody happy. But really now it should be every day. And people in general are great people. And when you show a little bit of compassion, not only does it help them out, it helps you out. You feel better about the situation. So man, I'm glad you said that. That's great advice for everyone that works with that's great advice for everybody. I was gonna say it's good advice for people that run companies or managers or whatever, but that's good advice for anybody. Question number 2 is, what are you learning now?
Well, right now, I'm spending a lot of time better understanding how to create a more diverse workspace. Last year we did a lot of work on our board of directors to bring in a greater level of diversity, not just from a cultural or racial standpoint, but also just from a skill set standpoint. So oftentimes we think about diversity in the common sense, and right now with all the societal unrest, it certainly does have one specific connotation. But what we forget is that diversity is the key to success for anybody. And we know even in building at Habitat, a diverse neighborhood is a healthy neighborhood. So a diverse company is a healthy neighborhood, or diverse company is a healthy company. And then also just a diversity and perspective correlates to a healthy mind. So the more we can challenge our preconceived notions and our biases and some of those things, the better decision maker we're ultimately going to be. And man, if you have a good understanding of diversity and you couple that with compassion, you're going to build some great relationships and go really, really far.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And you, again, diversity's hit the nail on the head, because, being a white male, I don't know all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I can't imagine all the answers. But when you bring in women, people that are have been through different backgrounds, lived in different places in the country, you gain so much knowledge. And that's one thing I love about traveling, is you meet so many different types of people with different perspectives, that if you're only closed-minded for the people that you've hang out with all the time, you're never going to get any kind of new ideas or any kind of new direction. So I think it's more important now that and you nailed it. It's not just, skin color or whatever the case. It's backgrounds, it's education levels, it's skill sets, it's all that. But again, that's what's made you guys so successful at Habitat for Humanity in Fort Wayne. So much love for you on that. Question number 3 is, how has failure shaped your life?
Oh gosh, that's a really great question. I think if most people are being honest, the fear of failure is probably one of the greatest motivators. But operating from a place of fear is never a truly authentic place to be. Innately, especially, if you have a religious component to your life, if faith is important to you, fear should be absent. And it's a basic human emotion. It is something that keeps us alive each and every day. If we weren't scared to run out in traffic, it would be a bad case scenario. But you can't operate from it, and it can't be your motivator ultimately. So in the short term, maybe, like if you're studying for an exam, you got a fear of failing that exam, it's going to push you to study and prepare appropriately. But ultimately, if you flip the question and say, I'm not scared of failing, I'm essentially seeking the opportunity to learn more, right? Expand my knowledge, just reshaping the question. So fear is not the motivator. Knowledge is the motivator now. And think about all those other instances in our life, like whether it's professionally, like fear of missing out on that promotion, looking at it as it's not the right opportunity for me and the right one's just around the corner. I don't have to waste my time there. I don't have to, spend any unnecessary energy in this space. But, fear is a very real thing. And I try not to let it be a motivator for me, at least not be a motivator for too long.
Yeah, my biggest fear, I've thought about this question because I've asked it 10,000 times, but I've really got to the point that with fear now for me is really the only fear I have is a fear of letting myself down. I'm not afraid of the action that I take, because if I truly believe that's the action I take, I'm not afraid of the repercussions. But if I don't take that, whatever's in my head, I'm fearful of letting myself down, because I mean, I don't want to let myself down. I don't want to let you down. I don't want to let anybody down, but I'm not afraid of any actions. I'm not afraid of repercussions if I truly believe what I believe. And it's coming from a place of compassion, of hope, and honesty. The only person I'm going to let down then, if I don't act on that, whatever that is, I'm going to let myself down, because I got to give myself a chance. You got to step up to the plate to be able to hit the ball. No matter how fast the balls are coming, you got to at least give yourself a chance. And I think that's important as well. So my fear is the fear of letting myself down. And, but hey, even that, man, hey, I'm not perfect. I let myself down sometimes, and that's okay. But I learned from that fear. I learned from those failures. And that's what I love about fear, is it's so important. Question number 4, super important, is, Andrew, who do you know that I should know?
Oh gosh. How much time you got?
7:11 Eastern Standard Time. So I've got till midnight. I mean, whatever. Lay it on me.
I'm just going to tell you a few people here locally that just keep me on fire, man. And one of them is Javier Mondragon. He's the CEO for Bridge Grace Compassionate Ministries, doing life-changing work in the Mount Vernon Park neighborhood, just north of Bishop Luers. I mean, single-handedly reduced crime rates by half in an 8-year period. Systematically rebuilding that community, strengthening relationships, and changing the image of Southeast Allen. Just a guy that is, he's captivating, man. Another one is David Book. He's the CEO for Cass Housing, and he's doing privately funded group homes and assisted living opportunities for people with developmental and physical handicaps. The guy is just brilliant, and he's got a heart of gold. And every single time I'm even just in the same room with this guy, I get a boost of energy. Yeah. It's effervescent. And I just love his genuine nature and his charismatic demeanor. Another one is Andrew Hoffman. I shared earlier. He's the CEO for NeighborLink, doing just neighbor to neighbor, tangible acts of love each and every day, big ways and small ways, building community, connecting people, and then helping meet immediate needs for people within our community, whether that's the elderly or the impoverished or someone that is sick and down and out for a little bit, doesn't matter. But providing an opportunity for people to reach out and connect with one another and take initiative to help their neighbor. And I just love his reservation. So if David Book's on one end of the spectrum, he's effervescent, his energy is contagious. Yeah. Andrew Hoffman, I love his thoughtful approach to everything. He's an introvert. He operates on a lower wavelength. He brings everything down, gives you a little bit more space to think and be less reactive and more intentional. So those are 3 guys in my space right now that every single day I'm just trying to get a little bit closer to who they are and what they're doing and the level of impact that they're capable of.
Well, I mean, I would appreciate the invite. If you could, send an email, send a text, send however you got to do it. I mean, I'd love to talk to those guys and learn a little bit more about what they're doing. Cause you know me, man, I just want to help. And the gentleman what was the gentleman you said that's helping with, cause I don't know if you know that, but I think you know this. My sister has Down syndrome. She's, let's see, she was born in 90. I always forget how old she is. She was born in 90. That's crazy. What is that?
30.
She's 30, man. Dude, that's crazy. My baby sister's 30, but she lives at home with my mom, and my mom's, that's another thing that my mom's been taking care of forever, taking care of my sister, and my sister. It's a lot of work, and I love her to death, but it's a lot of work. And people that help other people that can't help themselves are, and again, I'm not the most religious person, but they're flat out angels. I mean, they are people on this planet for a specific reason to do specific good deeds, and I can't surround myself with more people like that. Just I'm not even trying to get it. I just want to have conversations. Like, hey, what are you doing today? Stupid shit like that. Random open-ended questions and conversations, because the old Jim Rohn saying is you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. If you can associate yourself with people like that and just have coffee, just meet or help, and man, if I could have them on the podcast and help, generate anything, just the word of mouth. And with this podcast, like what we're doing here, there's going to be a lot of people that view it in the Fort Wayne area. There's going to be a few thousand people, I bet, they're going to watch this or listen to it. And if we can continue that message and help other people out in this neighborhood, and just really show the rest of the country, hey, what's happening here, to maybe give some ideas to really change the world one person at a time. That's what we're trying to do. So if you can connect us, that would be awesome. I'd appreciate that more than you know.
Absolutely.
I know you will. Hell yeah. Question number 5 is, what have you read that I should read?
Ooh, have you read The Alchemist?
That's one of my favorite books, bro.
That's always my first, because I'll tell you what, I'm not a fiction reader.
Yeah.
I'm always like a self-help book type of guy.
Sure, yeah.
History, love history. Hamilton's great. Not just a musical. But The Alchemist is always the first one. And I would tell the readers, it's a very quick read. And it gives you a lot of hope, that the world and the universe is innately good. And when our intentions are pure, and we go after our dreams with everything that we have, doors will open, things will manifest almost spontaneously to help us achieve those goals. So that's the one. But since you love that book and you already have it, I would say number 2, Clayton Christensen's How to Measure Your Life.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Harvard business graduate, and basically uber successful throughout the course of his life. And these are principles that you can apply and should apply first in the house and amongst your relationships, your friendships, and then in the business world. And if you can do that, you'll have a great life to look back upon if you're lucky enough to retire one day.
The Alchemist, is the way I found The Alchemist the first time was I listened to an audiobook, and I would almost recommend everybody listen to the audiobook, because Jeremy Irons reads it, and he's got this British accent, and the way he reads that book, oh my God, dude, it will change your life. I listened to it twice on audio, and I absolutely love that. That's actually I think it's next to the Bible. It's been translated in more languages than any other book in the world.
Yeah.
And that's got to say something, I mean, and the guy, I follow him on all social media platforms, and he just puts out random quotes, and I just love that. And the other one, Hamilton, I haven't read Hamilton. I think that's the next book I'm going to read. I just got done finishing Breath. I forget who the author is, and it talks about the power of breathing through your nose, which was fascinating. It goes back, thousands and thousands of years, and how it's reshaped from breathing through your nose, from breathing through your mouth, and how it's reshaped our face and our health and all these things. So you should read that book, Breath. I
heard about that book last year at this economic forum, and I can't think of the guy, but he's an economist, and he was talking about it, and he brought up that book and made some very intriguing statements about it. But I remember at that time, I'm like, I'm gonna have to check that book out. But you just bumped it back up to the top of the list.
Yeah, it was fascinating, and I learned that each nostril that you breathe through does different things. I think that when you breathe through your right nostril, it warms your body, heats your body. So after you get done eating, what they're recommending is you breathe through your right nostril, and it heats your body, allows you to digest food quicker, which I thought was fascinating. And breathing through your left nostril allows you to calm down and relax. And then he talks about the timing of breaths, how long you should do inhales and exhales, and how many times per day you should do it. It was just fascinating. And I do it literally. I catch myself doing it 4, 5, 6 times a day, focusing on breathing through my nose, and the impact that's made. Just breathing, man, it's been a game changer. And I also finished this book called Empire of the Summer Moon, about the Comanche Indians. Dude, you've got to listen to that book. I mean, it is fascinating. I mean, it talks about Comancheria and how the Comanches just owned the southeast part of the United States. They were horseback riders, and no one else was riding horses like they did. And I never knew any of this stuff and the stories and really how brutal they were. The Comanches and the armies and the Texas Rangers, everybody was brutal back then. 200 years ago, chopping heads off, chopping hands off. I mean, it was crazy. And it's not that long ago, which is, again, it's crazy how time is just, I don't know, time to me blows me away, but 200 years ago, they're chopping heads off. And now look at us now, we're talking on a Zoom meeting on our computers. It's just crazy. It's crazy how this all happens.
A long way in some regards and not very far in others.
Oh man, you got that right. Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do? And if you tell me ride 4,200 miles, this show ends right now because I'm not doing it. No way, bro.
Well, I would tell you that would be a truly life-changing experience, for sure. Gosh, have you ever been salmon fishing?
No, dude, I would love that.
So we'll yeah. So I specifically go up to Lake Michigan. There's tons of charter boats. Take some buddies, go salmon fishing. It's lazy man fishing until you actually get a bite, because then you got to reel them in. It can be pretty heavy and pretty far down, but it's a lot of fun. So I would say go salmon fishing.
Okay, well, you count me in. Next time you go, I'm +1 for you. I'm in for sure. That would be awesome. I would love that experience, and I'm going to hold you accountable to that. Don't let me down. All right.
All right, I got
Let's go salmon fish. That'd be a blast. Question number, I think it's 7. Pretty sure. Yeah, number 7 is one of the most important questions I ask, and I asked this question, and I always have to pre-reference this. I have to talk about the question before I answer. I don't know the fancy word for it, but I got to talk about the question before I ask it. I get a lot of these same answers that it's I'll ask you, how can I add value to you? And I don't want you to give me the answer that you've already done it. I want something tangible, something I can actually help you and add value to you in your life.
Keep growing. I think so often we take relationships for granted and feel like, you know what, we've got a connection here. And I hope you know this. You can call on me for anything. I'll show up, and likewise, I know I could pick up the phone, and if I needed something from you and you had the ability to deliver, you're going to do it. Right. But that's not really the meaning of a relationship, treating one another as a means to an end as opposed to an end in itself. And Chris Todia, who's the CEO for Youth for Christ, another guy you got to meet. So I'm going to hook you up with all these amazing people. Please. But he shared that, treat every relationship as an end in itself. I don't need anything from you. But one thing that I do need from you is to continue to grow and challenge yourself, because if you do that, the better you get, all that stuff is gonna end up impacting our relationship. Now I'm gonna be able to glean some of that information from you, and you're gonna challenge me, and I'm gonna have to grow, because guess what? Next time we get together, I want to pour into you just as much as you're ready to pour into me. So,
well, I appreciate you saying that, because I've thought about this last couple of days. Did I tell you I'm writing a book?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that book it should go to the editor tomorrow, and for the last 3 weeks, I was supposed to write the conclusion, the summary, and about the author. But I don't know what it was, man. I drug my feet over and over and over and over about this, because I think it's almost self-sabotaging. When you say keep growing, I'll pull this back into keep growing. It was almost me going back to me self-sabotaging myself and not actually, completing the goal that I set out. And this is like personal goals. I do business goals all day long. It's almost like I'm putting other people ahead of myself. I've talked about writing a book for years and years and years. And I've used this analogy in the last day or two, because I came to this realization. I'm still self-sabotaging myself to this day. When you go back in grade school, we used to have the, I don't know if you ever had those field days down at the Hamilton Park. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
It was always a 100-yard dash, not a 90-yard dash. And I feel like in my life, what I do when it comes to myself, I do a 90-yard dash and I don't do a 100-yard dash. With my book, I'm almost self-sabotaging myself again. And when you talk about keep growing, this is something that I wanted to set out to do. And I'm going to finish it. I literally had to type like 2 more sentences, and then it'll be done tonight and go to the editor. But this may be one of the first things that I've ever done that I actually haven't self-sabotaged myself. I've tried. I'm still trying to. Because I haven't finished the last two sentences. I'm still trying to. But when you talk about keep growing, this is what I've been really. This is an area I'm growing in, and I haven't told anybody about there's a part in the book that is the most emotional thing, and that literally no one in this entire world knows. Not my mom, not my dad, not my brother, not nobody. It's something that happened to me as a kid, and I put this in the book. So I'm tearing up thinking about it. It's self-sabotaging myself again, but I'm 2 sentences away. So I'll finish it tonight. But it goes back to that point about keep growing. You have to give yourself a chance. You have to complete what you want for yourself sometimes before anybody else. And when you do that, you continue to grow. You continue to get to the next level. You continue to now. I think to myself, like you did earlier, what's the next thing for me? What am I going to do next? And I've already thought about next book, and I've got a new title for the next. It's going to be called The New Leader, I think. But what I need to do is just focus on myself and focus on crossing the finish line of the 100 miles, and it relates to what your bike race was. You struggled for the first few days were great. Same thing with me typing out the book. It's great. And then you run up a couple roadblocks, and then you're like, I want to quit. I'm done. But you finished the damn race. And that's why this book is so important to me. And it's so short too. The book is going to be tiny, but it wasn't the amount of the book. It was completing something and running the 100-yard dash for myself and growing in that process. Because again, man, like if you call me, like you said, hey, you call me, I'm in, dude. I'll be 110% for you every single time. But it's a good lesson for not only myself, but for you and for all the listeners is when do you actually give 110% for yourself? And when you do that, you grow. And I think sometimes when you don't do that, you're limiting your growth, not just mentally, but I think you limit your growth. Well, on so many ways. It's not, and again, I keep wanting to talk about myself, but I limit my growth for my kids. I limit my growth for the people that wanted to give up, that did give up. I limit my growth for all these people around me. And when you talk about growth, I think it's just sometimes you can't do it for anybody else. You just got to do it for yourself. And it's pretty awesome, man. So I appreciate you saying that. Much love.
Yeah. Your growth is the most important growth. It's that old thing. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can only fill up so many cups. So you got to get that cup bigger, man.
Yeah.
No, but that's good. Well, congratulations on nearing the completion of this, man. That's exciting. That's a huge deal.
It is exciting. It's a huge deal. It's hilarious that, I actually wrote a book, which is hilarious in itself, but hey, it's just about done, man. I mean, it'll be out. I'm hoping, put the book in the stocking stuffers for Christmas. It'll be hilarious. If you see my mugshot everywhere on everybody's Christmas mail, it'll be great. Andrew, if anybody wants to reach out, anybody wants to help, anybody's got questions, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can go to habitatgfw.com, and you can click right on my name, and you'll get access to my email, and you can shoot me an email, and that's the easiest way to reach out to me. Or hit Jeremy up. He'll connect you. He'll plug you in.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely hook everybody up as much as I can. Like always, I always tell everybody, hey, it's great listening to the podcast, it's great watching the podcast, but make sure you subscribe, make sure you share it, because the only way we're going to get this positive message out and this authentic message, shoot, watching that debate last night. My God, everybody needs this authentic message now more than ever. I mean, my God, it was brutal last night, but it's all good. And I just want I thank everybody for listening to the show. Leave those 5-star reviews. Again, it allows other people to find the show, whether you're listening to on iTunes, Stitcher, Pandora. I mean, it's all over everything and all over the world. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is The Positive Side.